All right, you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Welcome to Lunch Break, everybody. My name is Meredith, and I am not here with Pastor Jay today. I am here with somebody who has more hair than he
Ooh,
does,
for now.
with our new pastor to students, Josh Call. We're so glad to have him here with us today. Thanks for being here. I
Yeah.
know that last week we were at camp. It was an amazing week. It was a long week, but it was an amazing week. But I wanted to have you on today just to talk about camp, but also just have a little one-on-one chat about and find out a little bit more about you, and let everybody else know who may have not had a chance to meet you and your lovely bride, better half, if I do say so, Ava.
Definitely the better half.
And just find out a little bit more about you guys. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in California. I grew up in the church. The church that I was serving in before coming to Northwest is actually the church that my family was going to from the time I was 5.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so a veteran of children's church and youth
Right.
ministry and camps and all of those things. I was talking to the students while we were at camp, and I was saying I think that I've been to probably 25 or 30 camps
Yeah.
as a student and
Yeah.
then as an adult leader. And so, yeah, very much had grown up in the church world. Both my parents are believers. One of my siblings is, and it had never really clicked for me the way I think it is for a lot of middle and high school students who sort of go to church because it's a social thing, because
Right.
that's what you do when you're a teen in the church, and because this was my parents' faith. And so my faith didn't really come home to me until I was in college. I had gotten plugged into a little church in New York where I was at school. And that was where the Lord just lit my heart up in a way that I had never experienced before. And I had gone to the camps and
Of
kind of
course.
had
Yeah.
that mountaintop experience, those kinds of things, but nothing that ever really translated to my life looking markedly different from my secular friends. And so it was that shift that happened when I was in college. The church that I'd been at was they emphasized Lent, and so I decided for the first time, okay, I'm going to participate in Lent alongside this church, and so I gave up caffeine because I was a new coffee
Woo.
drinker,
That's
and
brave.
yeah, and
Brave.
I don't know if I do it now, but at the time I was a new coffee drinker, so it was easy to do.
I don't know if Jay may have put in the job description that you have to like coffee
He did do
for.
that.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
he
real important
did.
around here. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, Ava thought that was very funny when we were looking at the listing. But yeah, so I did that, and then I committed to waking up 10 minutes earlier in the morning to pray. And it was in the span of maybe a week that I felt God just shift something in my heart that I had never experienced before, and just felt flooded with this joy and this peace that I had never really experienced, certainly not in that way. And it wasn't until I moved back to California after college. I had graduated and wanted to move home to be close to family. That my serious discipleship started. I got plugged in at the young adult ministry at the church that I had grown up at. And it was the first time in my life where I was around other believers who took it seriously, who took their own personal holiness seriously, who for whom church wasn't just something that you do. It was real and alive for them.
Right.
And that just completely took the trajectory of my life and brought it in a
Sure.
completely different direction. So, started serving and giving and doing all the things that you do as part of the life of the church. And it was about 18 months of that where I started working on the hospitality team at our church. We have brew crew here, so kind of
Yep.
the,
Yep.
the
Yep.
equivalent. And then I was asked to volunteer with Vacation Bible School because there's never enough volunteers for
Oh,
that.
yeah. Always need people.
Yeah.
Always.
And then ended up serving with Kids Church. And finally, the church, after about 18 months, approached me and said, would you be willing to step on as the student ministry intern? Because
Okay.
the previous youth pastors were stepping out of their role. So they asked me to come in. And I had no ministry ambition, like did not want to do ministry. I had gone to acting college and was working on a novel and kind of convinced that I was going to do something in the arts.
Yeah.
And I really felt God giving me confirmation through a couple of different people to say yes to that. And so I said yes very tentatively for a year.
Right.
And then slowly 1 year turned into 2 years, turned into 3 years, and God kept opening doors for me in ministry. You know, I found that student ministry was the intersection of everything I'd ever loved and been good at, right? It was preaching and teaching. It was being able to counsel students and help them with hard things that they were going through, getting to see students come alive in their faith. And I just felt after a couple of years that I was increasingly finding myself going, okay, yeah, I still want to do stuff in the arts, but more and more I can't see this ministry thing ever not being a priority. And so it was in the summer of 2023 was when I went, you know what, I think this is it. I think that I need to sort of downgrade some of those other priorities and move toward professional ministry for the rest of my career. And to be able to, the way they described it at camp was to be able to invest my best hours into ministry.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how I ended up getting connected with Ava, was that she was finishing up her undergrad at one of the schools that I ended up touring. And that's a whole other story that I can get into. But that at that point, you know, as soon as I said that last yes to God of, okay, God, I really think that this is the thing, that he just sort of sent the dominoes falling that led to me meeting Ava, that led to us deciding to move to Georgia, that led to this position at Northwest, that led to us being married, that just all of those things really fell into place from that decision like 2 years ago.
Well, and also part of your testimony to me is also, you know, okay, so I'm a believer and I love the Lord, but I'm not as close to him as I want to be. So let me just change these couple of small habits. Let me just wake up 10 minutes earlier to devote that time to him. Let me just, you know, say no to the caffeine for a brief period to focus a little bit more on him. Just a few changes, a little bit, I won't say a little bit increase in commitment. That's what I started to say, but that's not what I mean. Just some small changes to point your life a little bit more towards him, to where your relationship with him just blossomed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was, I think if I had known then how much my life was really not oriented toward God, and God had shown me all of that at once, I think it would have been really hard to say, okay, let me abandon the friends that I have and the professional pursuits that I'm investing in and all of those things, and let me just go chasing headlong after Jesus. And for me, it felt like, okay, this is this very small, manageable thing that it feels like this is the next yes that God has asked me for is, you know, start waking up at 6:50 instead of 7 and praying.
To pray.
And it was that experience that began to open my eyes toward how much of my life and heart was not turned toward God. And so, you know, God has been incredibly faithful with me. That was probably 8 years ago, maybe 8.5 years ago. And that God has just incrementally, step by step, asked me for a little more of my heart, a little more of my life, and has been so faithful and gracious with me when I've, you know, tripped and fallen on my face. And
as we all do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the way that I've kind of described it with students in the past is, at least with my personal discipleship, that it came with God taking hold of my heart, and then my habits, and then my hopes. And so my heart was the first thing. Before any of the cleaning my life up, any of those things, it was God grabbing hold of my affections and making me want to spend time with him, and making me love him in a way that I had never loved him, I think, as a high school. I thought I did, but I didn't. And then it was, okay, well, here's these aspects of your life that aren't in alignment with following Christ, and him just sort of peeling those off of me, kind of all those extra like barnacles that had stuck to my boat, and taking those one by one, and then finally bringing the hopes thing, those kind of professional ambitions, that heart for, I want to serve the Lord, but I want to serve the Lord in the way that I want it to look. And as long as I make this amount of money and have this amount of credit and whatever else. And then being asked by a dear friend of mine who was the previous youth pastor before me at our old church, And he said, I hear you saying that you have all of these hopes and all of these ambitions, but at the end of your life, if you had none of those things, you don't have the wife, you don't have the family, you don't have the career success, you don't have the money, you don't have any of those things, but you had God,
Right.
will that have been enough? And it's one of those questions that you hear and you know the right answer, right? Like the church answer.
Sure.
But
is it true?
Is it true? Exactly. Kind of knowing it up here
Yeah.
and feeling it here
Oh, yeah.
are two different things. And I think that we all, even now, will have days where it's a little more true here than it is
Sure.
here.
Sure.
But for the people listening on audio, more true in the head than the heart.
Right.
But I think for me, God has used these years to narrow the gap between those things.
Yeah, because it's it'll be a lifelong pursuit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're human. We want to be more like Jesus, but we got to we won't ever get there. That's why we need him. But just the pursuit of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing your story.
Sure.
That's fantastic. I've known you for a few weeks now. I've heard some of your background before, but I learned some new things as well. So thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Let's talk for a minute about camp.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I got on my shirt. It's a little wrinkled. I'm sorry. But I got on my camp shirt today. It was fantastic. We've been to CIY a few times, and I've been as a sponsor. This is my second time, but I have heard from other leaders. I've heard from my kids about what they've experienced and the preaching there and that kind of thing. And I would say I think this one was the best one yet,
really,
as far as the preaching goes, and just continuing to point back to the Word for these kids. And we got to know each other better. We played fun games. We had a lot of fun. What was your favorite part about CIY?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I completely agree with you. I was super impressed with the teaching. I think that sometimes with youth conferences and student ministry, sometimes the quality of the teaching can be a little more oriented toward this is a feel-good hype message and a little less toward the scripture. And they just walked through the kind of major themes of Hebrews. And it was super powerful.
It was.
I was taking notes through the whole thing for myself as much as to lead small group discussions. I would say my highlight absolutely was the small group discussions. Yeah. We had at the end of each of the sessions, so there was a morning devotional session and then the evening kind of more substantial teaching. And after each of those, they would give us maybe 45 minutes to an hour in our own dedicated classroom in the facility to just go through talking about the students' experiences, what the Lord was bringing up through the worship, through the teaching, if they disagreed with anything that came up, kind of all of that. And I was super impressed with the way that the students engaged and just the way the Lord allowed us to go so much deeper in those conversations. And again, the teaching was fantastic, but I think having that time as a group of 18 students and 5 leaders to dig in a little bit deeper and to encourage one another and to kind of build off of one another in the students' responses, I think really let it hit home in a way that it doesn't when you just go in, sit under the teaching, and then walk out and go play 9 square in the air or something.
Well, sure, because other people took things away from it that I would have never thought of. So it helped me to hear their perspective and hear what the Lord spoke to them, because He said something different to me, but we can all share together what we took from that. And so it was special. It really was. So I'm grateful that I got to be a part of that. Yeah. And then, like I said, played 9 square, played some games. You introduced some new games to us, to our group. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. The boys may have gotten into some mischief at night that you don't know about.
I don't know anything about any mischief. And if I did hear about any mischief that was going to go down, I told them, look, I'm not supposed to know about this stuff.
Exactly. You're not.
Keep it to yourself.
At least for some of it, they waited till the last night because they were trying to rope me into some mischief, and some of the girls went the first nights. And if you have any questions, just find Jeremiah Day. He'll be glad to tell you and show you some video. But I was like, no, Jeremiah, you have to wait till the last night to do any of this.
In case we get kicked out.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we're leaving the next day. It's fine. So anyway, it was all in good fun.
Yeah, definitely nothing like that.
I was all in good fun.
Yeah, and I think it is a testimony to the parents of these students, the parents who kind of surround Switch Student Ministries, as well as Pastor Stacy and his leadership over the group, to see the level of connectedness and community
Yeah.
that's been fostered there
Yeah.
is super exciting. There's so many student ministries where you go in and, maybe there's 100 students there, but nobody knows anybody else's
Right,
names
right.
other than your, 3 or 4 friends.
Correct.
And that absolutely didn't feel like that. I was a little apprehensive going into the small group saying,
Sure.
okay, we got 18 students and 5 leaders. That's
Right.
a big group to
Right.
be having in these small groups, and just seeing the students feed off of one another and for the most part not talking over each other.
They did a pretty good job. They
Yeah,
did.
absolutely. I was super impressed about that. And then, again, seeing that in the way that they spend time with each other and the way that they invest in their relationships with one another and with leaders was really, really a special thing.
Yeah. And the fact that at some point everybody felt comfortable and safe enough to open up. Everybody, all
Yeah.
of the students, the leaders as well, to be able to open up with each other and talk about things they're struggling with, and so that we can pray for each other. And that was an honor to be a part of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right. Well, what's coming up for Switch? What are some things that you can let us know? Because, school's starting here. It's starting for some kids. It's tomorrow.
Right.
For others, it's next week. It's starting.
Yeah.
It's starting. So what are we doing?
For sure. So, well, for the students who went with us to move, but we've also opened this up to any of the high school students who want to participate. We got these booklets called Rhythms. So that CIY puts out these little booklets that follow a 21-day scripture and prayer challenge that encourages students to be in the Word, to be setting aside regular times for prayer, to be going on walks, to be interacting with one another. It's really cool. We just kicked it off yesterday,
Yep.
and it'll be for the next 3-ish
Right.
weeks. So there's a few students who haven't been able to jump into that yet, and they're going to get a late start to it. But it's, I think, really just a powerful way for the students, especially the students who are at camp, but students in general, to just have that opportunity to keep some of that momentum going.
Absolutely.
Between what they experienced up at camp and then what they bring now into the school year. So there's
Right.
that. Our regular Switch, regular Sunday night gatherings are going to be kicking off on August 10th. So that
Okay.
is 2 Sundays from now, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. And then sometime next week, if you are a parent of a youth age student, you'll be getting an email from me that gives you a rundown of all the stuff that
Okay.
we've got coming up, what our event schedule is going to be for the fall, as well as parent meetings, those kinds of boring things. So if you keep an eye out in your email inbox, you should get something from me, hopefully by the end of next week.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm excited about the year to start. And my kids are too. They're excited to get back in the swing of things. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a great year.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
Well, thanks for being here with me today.
Of
I
course.
appreciate it. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week.